Hey guys, it's Rob J here, and in today's video I'm going to be moving my meat ants from their current test tube setup. I'm mainly doing this due to the fact that the test tube that they come in was one of the smaller sizes, and therefore the water reservoir is basically gone apart from a few drips. That means it will start to dry out from this point, and as you can see, my queen has been a very busy girl. So I'm going to link the original arrival video up in the top corner now, so you can see how she turned up. Well, basically she turned up with no workers and brood. Then she got a few workers, and now she has 6. I'm really happy with how she's doing, because she's starting to get the stride, and you can see how these can grow into such large numbers. So what I'm going to move her into is a larger test tube because she's doing so well, and also a different sort of setup. I'm going to go with an ant home 2. I've pre-PTFE'd the rim, so there's nothing to do once the ants are in the middle of their move. A lot of the time you'll find that you might forget to PTFE it, you move your ants and suddenly they're passing the barrier and you're like, oh, I never did that. So I always like to prepare the nest in every way I can. So what I'm going to do basically is I'm going to try and get the best shots and explain how I'm going to go about doing the move. But this is more to watch than a tutorial, although this is how I move most of my ant species and it's my preferred way. But that's only into a test tube, obviously. So I'm going to make a test tube with the largest test tube I've got, so I can have a larger reservoir, so I don't have to worry about it drying out too fast. Therefore they can live in it until they probably outgrow it. I'm thinking they'll outgrow it before it runs out of water, but you can see there the difference. The water part of the test tube is nearly the size of the full test tube they're in now. So, even though that these ants are super aggressive, meat ants, they're not particularly run about when they're in these small numbers. So it's rather an easy task to deal with them at the moment. I wasn't sure this was going to be the case. But it turned out that, none of them will run out of the test tube. Most ants will run out and you have them everywhere. These weren't too interested. So what I've done basically is I have linked up the 2 test tubes, and then what I've done is I've added a light source and a heat source to the old side, which made the queen pass over. Once she'd passed over, a lot of the large brood was taken with her, but most of the workers seemed to stay in the old one. But the queen had moved, so I thought, okay, we'll separate them for now. I managed to get 1 worker with her, which is always good because that worker will mark the entrance for the other ants. And I've gone ahead and installed her with the brood that had been moved to that point, which was mainly all the large pieces. All the fresh eggs stayed put. So now I've got that situated in there and she is nice and closed in. I'm going to put the other test tube in now, and we have a straggler in the outworld, so I'll just deal with this ant here, and it's always my go-to method is a tiny piece of cotton bud in some tweezers, and you just sort of nudge them and they always grab it, always. And it's really easy to deal with them, and if they get out of control or won't let go, you just release the tweezers, drop the cotton bud in. So a really good tip there, that's always how I catch escapees. So we're just going to leave this now. Now it's been about 3 hours, okay? And shortly after this clip was shot, the workers moved into the other test tube, but left all the young, fresh eggs behind. So I decided that as there's no workers in there, I'm going to saw off the test tube in half at the cotton bud point. So a lot of these white bits of plastic is actually saw fragments. It's not all eggs. But once I'd got basically point blank access, I was able to nudge them out with basically a follicle hair of cotton bud. I was able to push the eggs out, and as these eggs are designed to naturally stick together for the ants to carry, it was quite easy to move them out. And I got pretty much every single egg out in the outworld. Now when they come across the eggs, not in the test tube and all the rest of it, they see it as an unsafe place to leave them, and they collect them. So this is how I managed to do it. And as you can see, there's an instant response that they've got to be picked up and moved, yet they seem to have seemingly abandoned them in the previous test tube because no ant went near it for about 45 minutes until I decided I'm going to go in, get the eggs out myself. Now I did put this near the entrance as well, so it's hard to miss. But as you can see, almost immediately the message that there is more eggs outside was sent out. The trail was marked, and every ant, nearly, apart from one of the 6, took part in moving, and this caused them to also search the rest of the outworld as well. So it must have triggered a behaviour to check for them everywhere. But this went super smooth, and the Queen has had minimal stress because she not once panicked, because this Queen used to panic when I'd expose her to light. When I very first got her and I pulled back the tin foil to look at her the very first time, she sort of panics, yeah? But she spent this whole move washing. She didn't stop washing through the whole move. So I simply just joined a new test tube up, and she walked through, and then brood was carried through, and then she had another wash, and then she was put into the new outworld setup, and she was still pretty relaxed. She started cleaning her eggs, checking herself, rubbing her own sides. As you can see here, she's not really fussed whatsoever. So that's the main important thing. If anything you can take away from this video about moving any ants, it's always one of the best things to treat the Queen like a queen. She's the most important member. The other ants, they are expendable, they have short lifespans, they come and go. The Queen is the main important thing, and stressing her out could stop laying, make her eat eggs, all sorts of things we don't want. So having the Queen moved virtually seamlessly without her noticing, and only the workers really know what's going on by eggs being found outside, etc., is really the way that I like to do it, be it a test tube to a test tube, or a test tube to their first nest. Generally, I will get the Queen out in her own time, and then once it's just ants and the Queen is not going to feel any vibrations, that's when I might even tap the last couple of workers out, go in, get the eggs out as well. It all depends on the situation. I'm not saying that this is a blanket rule, but it's always a good idea. Now, if you've been watching this shot here quite closely, you can actually see this new, slightly translucent ring around the gaster at the back. Now, that wasn't there at the start of this feeding, so you can actually watch the ant fill up and expand to take as much sugary nectar as she could. And I included that because I watched that firsthand, and I couldn't believe that she carried on going. Even when she looked full, she carried on going. So I thought it was quite funny. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's ant video, and I'll catch you in the next one.